Hey everyone. When you think of something to rank in terms of films, what's one thing that usually doesn't come to mind? Years. Right, yes, I'm actually doing this. Today I'm making a rank video ranking every year in a decade. This is something I'm going to be doing now. I'm going to look at decades of film, the 6 decades of movies I like to watch. I am going to rank them each decade. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So we're going to start off, instead of going from the oldest to the newest, we're going to go this a little different way. I'm going to start from the beginning, mostly since it's probably easier now. I'm probably not even going to make it all the way to the 60s since, I have lesser films. Anyway, today at least, I'll see how far I can go with these rankings, but for this video, I'm going to be ranking each year from the decade 20 of the 2010s. It's sad to imagine the 2010s are over now. I mean, I still remember all the stuff I did during that decade, but now we're in a new one. Well, God help us all. The 2010s had a great amount of movies. We always like to complain about how old's better and whatnot, but let's just talk about, there are still great movies from that decade. And I think that this ranking will be fun to do. So, yeah, I'm going to be ranking each decade, each year, I gotta say, each year from the 2010s by, how many great movies there were each year. This ranking is based off of the film variety. I won't be basing it off of all media. So, TV shows, video games, songs, all that, not part of it. No, this is just for in terms of what movies came out. Just, based off of some of the best films out that I've seen and just, the great variety there is, all that good stuff. That's how the ranking works. You get it? No? Too bad. That's all I'm saying. So starting off, we have the year 2016. 2016 was a pretty controversial year. There was a lot of stuff that happened. There was a lot of celebrity deaths that happened this year. There was David Bowie, Alan Rickman, Carrie Fisher. It was sad in terms of that. But in terms of movies, there was a good amount. There were some good ones that come out. In terms of the best movies for me, those would be films like Deadpool, Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange. Yeah, they're all Marvel movies. Those are some of the best Marvel movies to come out that year. Other movies, well, there was Pixar's Finding Dory. That was great. I liked it more than other people did, especially. What about, in terms of Star Wars, there was Rogue One, but however, I actually remember I didn't like that movie when I first saw it. I like it a little more now. I still don't think it's great, but I don't hate it like I used to. Granted, that said, it still wasn't one of the best, and in terms of that, those really aren't the best variety of films. Like 2016 was a kind of a below year. It was fine. It had some good ones, but overall just kind of lackluster, or at least in terms of what I saw. There are still some great ones I need to watch soon, but for the ones I have seen, the year could have been better. The year 2011. This year featured a good amount of films. The year we got, let's say, we got two Marvel movies, Captain America and Thor. Those were good. What else came out? I'm trying to think. I'm going from the top of my head. Ooh, there was Cars 2. Everyone hated it, but I actually liked it. My favorite one of this year would probably have to be Rise to the Planet of the Apes. The beginning of the new Planet of the Apes series, the remake series, the one we're used to now. That movie was pretty awesome. It's definitely a very must watch for us science fiction fans. And that was a great movie. Aside from that, what else came out? There were some good ones. There was the Harry Potter film, but I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but I'm not really one who watches those movies, so that wasn't really in my taste. Warrior was a big movie that people love. I thought it was a good one. I didn't think it was amazing, but I still watched it. I don't know. I feel like 2011 just kind of went here and there. There were some good ones. There were some fun comedies that came out this year, but overall, I feel like I remember more from the portion of what I saw at the time, what I see now. I kind of look back at this year randomly. I don't really look back at it many ways. I look back at what comedies came out. In terms of the best, I'd say the Planet of the Apes film again. But in terms of comedies or whatnot, that's usually what comes out. This year featured a few funny movies, a few interesting movies, and again, maybe I just need to watch more. That's kind of what I have to say for all these, but overall, it's fine enough. 2015. Yes, this was probably my favorite year of the decade in general. Well, maybe. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. It's kind of hard to think about it, but in terms of movies, it's just ranked at number 8 because, but I feel like I could have ranked this better because this year really did hit a spot at the time at least. I remember every movie I saw in theaters at the time. I remember that was the year I saw that was the second Avengers movie, which I actually was only watching for the sake of how many people in my school were into it. I didn't really know much about the Avengers at the time. That was the year the other Marvel movie, Ant-Man, came out, which I had more fun with, if I'm being honest. There was Pixar's Inside Out, which was an amazing movie and still is. There was Mad Max Fury Road, which I did not see in theaters at the time. I watched it when I got older. I didn't watch back then. Why would I? I was 10. But then of course there's Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and I know what you're gonna say. Ooh, sequel trilogy awful. Well, look, you may not want to admit it, but every Star Wars fan was hyped for this movie at the time. It was all we were talking about. I was hyped too. I wanted to get to. That was actually the year that I first got into every Star Wars movie. I was partially into Star Wars before then, but when I heard that The Force Awakens was coming out as a new Star Wars film, I was like, shit, I gotta get ready. So yeah, at that point, I fully sit down and watch every Star Wars movie, and from that moment, my Star Wars obsession actually began. I got more obsessed with the franchise. I got more love the movies. I got collecting, and yes, I went to go see The Force Awakens when it came out, and I was hyped as hell. And you know what? I still think the movie's great now. Yes, you can say I'm stupid, but I don't care. I still liked it. Overall, this year was fun. It was a fun year for cinema, in my opinion. It wasn't great compared to some of the better films, but in terms of when I went to theaters at the time, it was a lot of fun, and I'll give it that. It was a fun year for my cinema. Just it's looking back, I think maybe the year in terms of what movies I watch overall, not just in theaters, there are a few better ones. 2017. Now this is another year I had fun with at the time. This year I enjoyed, did a lot in that year. That was the year I got a Nintendo Switch, which was popular. But anyway, let's talk about movies. What came out that year that I saw? Well, to be honest, a couple of the big movies that came out around this time I actually didn't see in theaters originally. I saw Spider Man Homecoming, which was my favorite movie that year. I honestly have a soft spot for calling Tom Holland Spider Man the best. I know you hate me for that, but I don't care, again. Um, and yeah, I just think that this new Spider Man we got is really fun. It's not just funny, it's has a new evolving idea to it. And I think, that was where my Spider Man fatigue really took off. I was into Spider Man a lot already, but I was ready to see what new adventures a new Spider-Man has to offer in this new Marvel world. Now there was also there was Thor Ragnarok. That was the other Marvel movie. That was fun. That was a fun movie to watch. Um, there was Pixar's Coco, which was a pretty amazing movie. I actually didn't go see it in theaters because I wasn't interested enough. I thought, okay, I don't know, it's just really my appeal. But later on, I checked it out eventually, and yes, it's a really great movie. It's definitely one of Pixar's best. And yeah, from there on after, the rest of the movies I seen, some of the better ones, I just checked out on my own time. I checked out. Oh, of course, I there was the next Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi, that came out that year. At the time, I liked it because I had a Star Wars obsession, but now I got to admit, it really isn't a good movie. I'll say that. Out of all the things fans can agree on the trilogy, that's one thing I can't agree with. The Last Jedi wasn't really good. But I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was terrible. I just, I can agree it could have been better. But still, there were some great ones. There was Coco again, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, and trying to name as many as I can from the top of my head. So sorry if I'm missing some. I'm trying to go off randomly, but yeah, this year was fun. And here we have the beginning of this decade, 2010. I cannot remember seeing movies in theaters this year. I remember seeing Toy Story 3 in theaters. That was an epic time. This is still my all-time favorite animated movie, so I'll give you that. This movie still holds up amazingly. I actually love it more now than I did back then, which is funny. But other than that, the rest of the movies I call great are just movies I saw at home. I don't think any other movie that came out this year I call great I saw in theaters. Inception I obviously checked out recently. That's one of Christopher Nolan's most beloved films. There's How to Train Your Dragon, the DreamWorks film that people have always called the best one of theirs. It's a pretty nice one. It's nicely told. It's a definitely a fun DreamWorks film to talk about. It's one that I really think works best without any live action gimmicks, and you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, um, and aside from that, what else was there? Okay, 2010 was a fun year because I think the year was more fun in terms of music. Songs. I have a lot of nostalgia for the songs that came out in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I'm that kind of person. But I listen to those songs more than the songs that come out nowadays. I don't think I can really keep up with what songs come out these days. I'm getting off topic, aren't I? I'm having a hard time naming every film I saw each year's on the top of my head. So I'm going by what movies I can remember, what movies are on here, and what movies I saw. But yeah, the year was fun. Toy Story 3 came out, Inception came out, How to Train Your Dragon came out, and I think those are the best examples. I think I'm just kind of trying to think through with these films. Overall, this year was good. Yeah. But I gotta remember that I'm ranking them. I'm not. I'm just standing here blabbering about them. All right, 2018. Yes, this one I can talk more about because I was more grown up around this time. This was when, of course, Avengers: Infinity War, the most epic Avengers movie ever, aside from the next one, came out. And yes, every Avengers fan was hyped for it. They were all super excited to see it. I was sort of excited. Like I wasn't top tier Avengers fan. I was more of a big Marvel fan. And when I knew Spider Man was in the movie, that got me more hyped to see it. So I was mostly going in to see Spider Man, but and then of course I knew how many other characters were in the movie, and I was really hyped to see it. I wasn't again as hyped as others, but I still really enjoyed watching it. And yes, nowadays I think it's a pretty great Marvel film. Or of course, there's the Spider-Man movie he got alone, Into the Spider-Verse, which I actually originally thought was going to be terrible because it was made by Sony Animation, who had a bunch of bummers the past few years. But I saw it when I heard that the movie got a lot of praise, so I gotta say it really turned out to be great. More great than anyone could ever imagine. There's the movie Green Book, which I can't really say it was the best picture winner, but it was fine. It was fun for what it's worth. I think another movie I could talk about. Ooh, there's Incredibles 2, the second Incredibles movie that I was hyped for. Well, Vanny, I thought to myself, oh, but wait, I don't think I remember seeing the first Incredibles movie. So I had to tell myself, yeah, I really need to watch it. So I did. And that's where I became a huge fan of both. I really loved the first movie, and I also loved the second film. People turn their back on it nowadays because it's inferior, but I still can say it's great. As for Star Wars, we got Solo, which underperformed, and many people say it's a little lukewarm. But I don't know. I still think it was good. I mean, it definitely isn't one of the best, but it was still a good movie. I think it could have gotten a better box office result. Or Bohemian Rhapsody. That's a movie I like to talk about because yeah, I'm a huge fan of the band Queen, and I gotta say the movie was well done for that. It was a pretty good biopic. Or ooh, trying to think of it. Ooh, Ready Player One. That's right. Yes, that's another great movie I talked about. Now that was the movie I analyzed in my college assignment for those who watched the video who weren't supposed to. But yes, that is an amazing movie in my opinion. I really love it more than others do. I think it's probably one of the best movies of the year, one of the best movies of the decade. I think it's really that amazing. And that was a fun watch. I actually saw that in theaters. I don't know why. I don't know why I was into it at the time because I was more so only seeing movies that were either animated or part of a franchise. But I just thought, it looked cool. It had a bunch of pop culture references and it was made by Spielberg. So that's, that can drag anyone's attention. Overall, yes, 2018 was fun for me. I had fun with the movies I saw. There were some things that happened in the year in general I'm not too proud of, if I'm being honest. But in terms of movies, there were some great ones to come out. Ah, yes, 2012, another year where I'll see what I can. It's mostly the earlier years, the years where I was only like 5 or 6. This was when I was too young to care about any of these hype movies. Dark Knight Rises, Django Unchained, even the goddamn Avengers. No, no, I could care less about this as a child. That was when Wreck It Ralph and Brave came out. Yay, animation. Hotel Transylvania came out that year. I love animation or whatever. Um, in terms of anime movies, Wreck It Ralph was great, but aside from that, I can't really think of any other films come out that year that I really cared for that much. I mean, Wreck-It Ralph, I actually remember I didn't like it. I actually didn't like that movie when I first saw it, but I love it now, so that's good. But anyway, let's talk about the big movies. Yes. Django Unchained, Quentin Tarantino's next film, and boy, it sure is one. He certainly puts his name under it with all the N words said, and certainly it's fun to see all that for this movie, how much he can get away with, and how much fun it leads to. Or, of course, the finale in the trilogy of Batman, Dark Knight Rises. People talk about it being not as great as the others, and I can agree with that, but it's still a good movie on its own. Sometimes. Or, yes, of course, the Avengers. Who can forget them? This was the first movie to introduce this team, and boy, it's a pretty awesome one. At the time, my only care is with Spider-Man in terms of Marvel, so I barely cared about these other people, but when I eventually came down to checking out these Avengers films, I had so much love for it. I really think they're so epic and cool, and I really need to give more Marvel superheroes the credit they deserve. Because while Spider Man is still my favorite superhero, there's of course Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Captain America. But they all can deserve their credit too. So I apologize for giving the Avengers shit for being inferior. They're still pretty awesome. And yes, this year gave us all that awesomeness with these people, and of course, of all the others. It was a pretty fun year for that, you know? For the movies that were exciting, it was fun. And yes, the year I remember the most seeing, because 2019 was actually, I remember, the first year where I really became a buff for movies. Years before, I was mostly going back and forth on watching a movie, playing a video game, checking out anything I could. But this year was the year I decided I really do want to buff into watching as many movies as I can. So this was the year I became the buff that you see me as now. And yes, this was where I saw lots of great movies. I saw, of course, Avengers Endgame, which was awesome as all can be. It was the most exciting Marvel movie of all time. Every Marvel fan loved it. It was awesome in every great way. Spider Man even got a movie this year. People toned down with it because it's not as exciting as Endgame, but it still is a great one in my opinion. I still really love it. Joker, we hate it because of the sequel, but we shouldn't because this movie alone is still pretty amazing. It's a new take on this vigilante Gotham villain, a new kind of Gotham villain actually. It's not the same kind of Joker, which is cool. Or then there's 1917, which I actually remember only going to theaters to see because Dad took me. He thought I was learning about World War II at school, so he decided I should watch this movie. And when we came out of the theater, I said it was amazing. He was like, "Oh, so did you learn a lot about World War II for your assignment?" I'm like, "What assignment?" It turns out I was not learning World War II. He just misheard what I was saying, but I got a great movie out of it. So who cares? It was awesome. It was a great movie. And it was even the year, this was even the year we got to see Star Wars and its saga and its trilogy with Rise of Skywalker. Guess what, people? I actually thought that movie was great. I know it's the most shit on Star Wars movie, but I don't care. I actually really loved it still. I don't think it's as epic or fantastic as the original trilogy. I think that there are ways, we can get more films. It could have not everything about that movie was perfect, but I still get enjoyment out of it. I don't care if you think I'm not a real fan. I loved it. So suck it. Oh, and also there was Toy Story 4, which people also hated because we don't need it. And yeah, I can agree. It seemed like pretty out of nowhere, but when it did come out, it still was amazing in my opinion. So yes, this was a year where we got movies that were great for both its promotion and its release, and movies that we didn't know we wanted, but we got anyway and still loved. Or at least I loved. Alright, so 2014. Now this year I got a bigger whip from it because this is the year that more awesome movies like Guardians of the Galaxy came out. This is when the Grand Budapest Hotel, which I saw recently, came out. This is when movies that I saw later on came out because it was a younger year. Now I do still remember some movies I saw at the time in theaters as a kid. But it was, of course, just the animated films. It was the Lego Movie and Big Hero 6 came out that year. So yeah, those. Those are great movies though, so I can't complain. They're still pretty amazing films. But the bigger films, the more mature ones, like again, Guardians of the Galaxy, Budapest Hotel, even, or there was the second Planet of the Apes film for the trilogy, which was pretty great. There was I'm trying to go off my head here. Interstellar, I actually didn't think Interstellar was as great as some of the other ones, but it still is a good one to talk about. Overall, I think more movies came out this year that I really do have more fun with. It's not as exciting as 2019, but in terms of the best, it did get a larger variety for me. And then the soft number one I rank is 2013, mainly because this was the year that I think had the biggest amount of great films for me to watch, but mostly films I recently checked out. So yeah, keep that in mind. Wolf of Wall Street, the mature film about with all sorts of profanity and nonsense. It was awesome. Her, a story of romance and AI or all that. Nice story. There was Now You See Me, which one of the recent movies I watched, and I actually really did love it a lot. I did think it was a pretty amazing film. I gotta be honest. Um, what I seen in theaters at the time? Well, I saw Monsters University. That was a good one because Pixar. It's fun. I saw Frozen because that's animated. But at the time, I really could only focus on those two movies. Ever since, I've seen a lot more movies in this decade, and yes, decade. I meant year. This year, I saw more movies, and yes, a lot more have really spoke to me. There were a lot of great ones. So again, not as exciting as something like 2019, but in terms of how great these movies are, I think this did get a bigger variety for me. But that should eventually change as I get to see more movies. So I feel like I'm wasting time with these videos.